The hardest lesson that I learned was when I had to learn English again. You see, in 2015, I lost the capacity for speech. And then when I could speak again, it was a pidgin of all of the languages that I know, except English. And nobody could speak this language except me. And this blend of stutters in Spanish, Portuguese, French, was all rooted in Latin and many tears. And it wasn't helped by other patients in the hospital who treated me as someone profoundly mentally challenged and worthy of ridicule. You see, by then we'd already known that I was bipolar, but what we didn't know was that a manic episode could render me totally at a loss for words. But my mother would visit me every day, and she would hold me and sing me hymns. And eventually, I gained the courage to interact with others. When I was thirsty, for example, I would sing. And I would sing Waterfalls by TLC. And this is how the staff eventually learned that it meant that I wanted water, since it was consistent enough. Or at 3 in the morning, if I was bored or upset, I would go to the front at reception and crawl under the counter and start singing I'm Not Okay by My Chemical Romance. And it gave other patients a laugh, and it cheered me up too. And one day in the recreation area, I could still hear my mother's words singing. One day at a time, sweet Jesus. One day at a time. And it was then that I noticed that we had a new patient. And by some miracle of inclusion, being grounded in the present, I was able to tune into the discussion that he was having. And I tuned in and I could hear him saying something about how modern art is pointless, specifically about how performance art doesn't matter. And suddenly I'd found the words that I had lost. I chimed in, no, that's not true. Haven't you heard the story of Marina Abramovich and Ule? And I started to tell him the tragic tale of how these two chaotic artists had a long career together, and when they decided to call it quits, they both climbed the Great Wall of China from opposite ends, only to meet in the middle and to part ways, to not see each other for decades. And years later, Marina would have a display at the MoMA called The Artist is Present, where she would be seated at a table, completely still. Unannounced, Ule would come to visit her. Silently, he places his hands over hers. And quietly, she begins to weep. Isn't that beautiful? I said. And though music had brought me to interact with others, it was the power of silence that had moved me to speech. And living with this illness is much like mastering the performance of a musical act. There are powerful highs that are at times played with the most powerful fortes. And there are the most profoundest of lows felt in the quietest pianissimo. And it was in that moment, in the concert hall of the recreation room, that I learned that though I lost the sheet music, I could still play the instrument of language. And though I had briefly lost the ability to speak English, I learned that I could take it one day at a time.